I just got a message that said my internet is unstable. Honestly, internet at times, so am I. So we have that in common. Hello. Hi, friends, and welcome to the Activity Continues podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Megan.
And this is Amy. Thank you for joining us again. This week we are continuing our little mini series on the documentary Fall River. So we're taking a small break from the Dead Files for now. The last recap was a little bit of a hot mess, I realized, as we were editing it.
Yeah.
But honestly, that's the way the show is structured. We were just walking you through the way the show is. And they basically just...
our fault.
I mean, a little bit of it was mine because I wrote the outline. But that's the way they did it. They were like, here's Carl Drew, here's Robin Murphy, here's Karen. And you're like, who the fuck are these people? And then they tell you.
They do like a very high level overview and then they do a deep dive. And
exactly.
I kind of get why they do it, but at the same time, I don't, because it's super confusing. Like, you're starting out and they're like, here's 5,500 people, right, and then we're going to explain everybody to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, hang on, we'll get there. Like we always say.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, it doesn't, I think part of it, and I think part of what, we might have goofed up on doing is that we were talking a lot about, we weren't just guiding you through as if you were watching it for the first time, because we already had our ideas figured out, and we were interjecting those, and that might have been a mess.
Yeah, that might have been a bit
But anyway,
that's that's what happened. Honestly, if you're not new, you know that we are a bit of a hot mess. So it's par for the course.
It's what happens. I mean, it's kind of it's part of our charm, right?
Yeah, that's part of our charm. It's all my charm. Take away the hot mess portion, I'm just a dud.
So we hope it was entertaining enough. But that's that. I probably didn't succeed, but I tried to do it a little bit more bit more coherent this time. But cohesive. We'll see. And also for the next 3, because we only did episode 1 last time. For the next 3 episodes, I want to do a little more high level so that we can just zoom right through them.
Zoom through because in order to do this case justice, we needed to do more of a deep dive. So we bit off a little bit more than we could chew with this, but at the same time, we want to give we want to give the case the time it deserves and the victims the time that they deserve. And so that's why it's taking a little bit longer, but it's a very, very complex case. And so
it really is.
We just want to give the victims the time they deserve. So we are going to get back to our Dead Files show. We miss Amy. We miss Steve. We miss everybody. Miss the sketches. Yes. So don't you worry your pretty little heads off.
Yeah. That's right. We'll get back to it. We'll get there.
Yeah. Will this work better? I don't know. But let's hope. Because I don't want to have to do it again. It's amazing I have friends, honestly.
No, it's not.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So we just want to say we are getting back to our Dead Files recap soon, very soon, because we miss Steve, we miss Amy, we miss Matt, we miss the sketches, we miss digging through the archives.
Yep.
Soon.
Yeah.
So what's new with you?
I don't think I've got that much new. I do want to explain a little bit about what we're doing with the promo partner this week. I'm working with our host of our podcast called Red Circle. And Red Circle hosts, of course, other shows as well. And if you would like to do a cross promotion with another show, you just reach out to the show and you say, hey, I think we'd be a good match. And then they will respond if they're interested. And then you upload your trailer, they upload their trailer, and then Red Circle knows to insert them into our show. So we have a new partner in a podcast called Hello Poland. And this is a true crime, paranormal podcast. It's a woman who...
Sign me up.
I know. This woman has an amazing voice. She is South African, but she lives in Poland. And so she's doing things, I guess most of her stories are Polish. But so you're going to hear her podcast probably... it'll be depending on when you listen. If you listen to this right when it comes out, you'll hear it this time. If you listen to this episode a year from now, you probably won't hear it. It'll be a different podcast putting it in there. But I just wanted to let you guys know that's what we're doing with that.
Fun fact: I've been to Poland.
You have?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
What's it like? What was it like?
Well, it was terrifying. And keep in mind, this was 15 years ago. So I was meeting my friends. So this was when I was studying abroad, and thank God that my mom is listening to this after the fact, because if she had known about this, she would have shit her pants. I'm sorry, Mom.
Sorry, Mom.
The plan was, I was in Germany visiting a friend, and we were going to meet up in Berlin in one of the train stations, and then all travel to Poland together, because one of my people on the trip with me was doing a report on, because
you froze.
I was still in college, so she was doing a report on Auschwitz on train station in Berlin. So
you froze. So say again, because your friend was doing a report.
Yeah, so my friend was doing a report on Auschwitz and Birkenau. So we were going to meet up at the train station in Berlin, go to Poland, and it was going to be great. Fun fact, there is more than one train station in Berlin.
Oh,
go figure.
Sure.
Right? Right? We did not know that. And so and at this, we didn't have cell phones, it was 2007 and we were in France. It's not like today, kids, where you can just bring your phone with you and just call boop, 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 AT&T. Yeah. Hi, yes, we're going abroad. No, you couldn't do that.
Yeah.
And we're trying to find internet cafes to email each other back and forth, where are you? Where are you? Where are you? So then I'm like, okay, well, I'll just catch the last train from Berlin to Poland, which was a night train. It was an overnight train. And I bought it, and then I got to Warsaw. So I went from Berlin to Warsaw, and then from Warsaw to Krakow. And I get to Warsaw, and I'm checking my email, to let her know when I get there. And she goes, and I missed this email. She said, don't take an overnight train.
Oh, no.
And I did. And I was in this layover in Warsaw, and the train station, this was at 3 a.m.
Oh, no.
And little me and my bright fucking Little Red Riding Hood peacoat stood out like a sore thumb. And when I got on the train from Warsaw to Krakow, they had guys with guns coming around, checking your passports. And I'm
Holy
like, shit, I'm 21 years old at this time. I am not the world traveler that I am today.
Right.
And I'm shitting my pants.
Oh my God.
I'm in this little cafe in these tunnels in the train station in Warsaw. I'm freaked out. I'm terrified. 1,000% convinced I was going to be murdered. This is where I end. Oh my God, it was probably the scariest experience of my life.
Oh my God.
But Poland itself, Krakow, was beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah. Cool. I've heard it's nice.
That's my Poland story. Nothing against Poland.
Right.
It was, and I'm sure being 21 and, the first time out of the country, I was blowing it up with, I'm sure if I went today, I'd be totally fine.
Yeah.
But when you're 21 years old,
traveling by yourself, I don't think I would.
See, that's fine.
Be comfortable
traveling
doing
by
that.
myself, I was, I did it quite a bit overseas. I'd meet up with people, but
no. I'm not that brave, and I'm much older than you. and much older than you were at that time. Yeah. Oh.
I'm probably as old as you were when I was there. So my age right now is probably the age that you were when
right.
I
Got
was there.
Yeah.
So fun fact.
Fun fact.
So that's how I derailed this entire episode.
So
no,
that's fine.
To the show.
That's fine. I don't want to spend too much time doing this because I know we have a lot to get to, but I have two TV recommendations for you.
Tell me.
And for everybody else. One is called The Devil's Hour.
Okay.
It is on Amazon Prime.
Sounds terrifying.
It's not, I wouldn't say it's terrifying. It's really weird and really cool.
Is it fiction or nonfiction?
It's fiction.
Okay.
And it is about a woman who, well, the premise is that she wakes up every morning at 3:33 from a dream that then often is actually something that's going to happen in the future.
Really?
But it doesn't always happen.
Okay.
And so sometimes the thing doesn't happen, but she still sees it as though it happened. It's very hard to explain.
Yeah. Interesting.
And it jumps back and forth between the end of the story and then we retell the beginning of the story. And so it's confusing in that way, but then it also has to do with different, I don't want to say different universes, but different timelines and different possibilities. Like if this happened, then things would be going on. And she can flash back and forth from one time to another. And so she sees it all. Well, not all, but she sees a lot of it. It's very, it's fascinating. As soon as we finished it, we're like, well, we're going to be watching that one over again.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was really, really good.
Okay, good.
The lead man in it is Peter Capaldi, who played Doctor Who for a time, a couple years ago.
Oh, from Twilight. And no, that's Peter Fontanelli. It wasn't Twilight. Never mind.
Okay. Yeah, Peter Capaldi. He was
nice.
Doctor Who for a while.
Nice.
He's been in a lot of things too. I didn't know him until he was in Doctor Who, but I know he's been in a ton of things. Anyway, and then the second one I just watched today is The House of Hammer, which is all about Army Hammer, and that is on Discovery Plus. Did you see it?
I've started watching it because my friend Patrick was telling me about it, and I started watching it, and it is fucked up.
I cannot believe that family is not all doing time.
I know. I don't know. Away. I think I started like episode 2. It was Bananaramas. Like from like the grandfather down. It was just fucking terrible people.
Yeah. And they were saying things like, they were communists and it started making me think like, how people today think that if you're not conservative, that you're a communist and you're a socialist and all that. And then when Army Hammer was talking about, how he wanted to eat people and stuff. And I'm like, is that where the QAnon people got the whole thing about how all people in Hollywood and the Democrats are all eating babies? Is that where they got that? Did it come from that family?
I mean, maybe.
And then there's something else happened too. And I'm like, oh my God, they could have gotten that from them too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't know.
That was a trip.
Who knows where the QAnon people get anything that they think? Like, they just, oh my God. I think what they do is they put different ideas on different boards, like a verb here, a noun here, an adjective here, and they throw darts, and whatever sticks, they make an idea out of.
Yep. Yeah. It's about like, as sensical as it is.
Okay, Obama, what's the verb? Eating. Okay, what's the noun? What's he eating? It's like an episode of Mad Libs.
Right.
No ideas.
Oh God.
Just people in a room. Okay, I need an adjective. Thumb. No, that's a noun.
Well, that could be an adjective too. No, it could be a verb.
No, it could be a verb. He's thumbing his way. Thumb my way. Okay, anyways, enough English for today. The House of I did
House of Hammer.
That one was good.
There's only 3 episodes, so there's You only got one more to go. But yeah, it's a trip.
It's
my God.
I don't know what I'm watching right now. Let me think. Lots of Hallmark movies while I craft. And those are always edge of your seat. You never know what's going to happen.
You never know.
So,
will they or won't they?
Will they fall in love in a coffee shop, or will it be in a field, or will it be in a bookstore? You don't know.
You never know.
So
you never know.
Sky's the limit.
I know. I just downloaded the Hallmark app yesterday because, I spent all October watching something scary every day.
Yeah.
And so then I spend all November, and let's be honest, all November and all December watching Hallmark movies.
Well, you
and
let me know if you want recommendations, because
Okay.
I took snapshots and sent them to my friend Roxanne, because she was like, my husband's hunting this weekend and I need recommendations. And so I put like 3 hearts if I really liked it, or like a sad face if I didn't.
Cute.
So
last year I was rating them by like how many hot chocolates. That was my rating system, was like, because they were always eating hot chocolate. Drinking hot chocolate.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, this is worth 3 hot chocolates. And this one.
That's adorable.
Yeah.
That's really cute.
That's how I rated them.
Yeah.
And then like if they were at a craft thing, or they were going to do some craft together, they got extra points for that. If they went ice skating, they got extra points for that.
So, So everyone got an extra point.
Most of them,
If they fell in love for some sort of competition, like an ice sculpture competition or a baking competition, extra points for that. I'm pretty sure there is an actual ice sculpture one where they I don't know if they're working together to do the ice sculpture or they're fighting, but there's an ice
I'm sure it starts off one way and ends another way and then goes back to the other way.
And it's always like some woman coming back to town to help her family's farm, and she runs into her old high school flame who's widowed with a daughter. 8 to 10-year-old daughter. And she really connects with, oh my God, it's like the same, like it's like just copy paste a story to another.
Talk about like putting stuff on a wall and just throwing a dart at it. It's like, so is the main person that, our main hero, is that the girl or is that the guy? Okay. Yeah. Now then we go, which one are they going to meet?
Now, what corporate job do they have? Lawyer, finance, whatever. Yeah. And then why are they returning home? Is it to help their family business or help their ailing father? Yeah. And then who do they run into? But why do I love them so much?
I know, I do too, because it's easy, it's comfortable.
And it just gives you warm fuzzies.
Yeah. I feel like I need something like that to get into the Christmas spirit. Otherwise I don't. But if I watch those, I do. And I'm like, I want to wear a Santa sweater and drink hot chocolate and make crafts.
I will say there was one movie, I don't even remember what it was, but they had glued just like cotton balls to her boots to make it look like snow was stuck on her boots. But it was so obvious cotton balls.
Oh my God.
Like it did not move when she took steps. And I'm like, Hallmark, you're better than this.
You're better. Oh my God. That's hilarious. Yeah, I have seen somewhere they're like, oh, that's a skating rink, is it? Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like,
sure,
it's
Jan.
Like plastic shit down on a
my God, I know. And
floor.
It's like, you're not skating, you're rollerblading. We all know.
Okay.
Anyway, enough.
We love them.
Oh my God, I'm just derailing us left and right today.
That's okay. We'll try and get through this episode quickly.
Yeah, we will.
So this is episode 2, and it's called Deal with the Devil. And so we're just going to jump right in, right?
Yep, we're content
right
warning, same as everything else.
Yeah,
literally everything.
Anything you can think of that's icky.
It's in this.
It's in this show.
Yeah.
And we are going to try not to cover all of that.
Yes. We're
just the facts. And
even if it's brought up, we're not going to dive into it. We just mention it and skate past it.
on our fake roller rink.
It all circles back to Hallmark.
It always does. Always does.
6 degrees of Hallmark. So episode 3 is mostly about Robin, right?
This is episode 2.
I thought we were doing episode 3.
No, we have to do 2 before we can do 3.
Oh, you just said 3.
I did.
No, you said 2. Oh my God.
This is episode 2, Deal with the Devil.
Yes.
And you want and you want me to like talk it and you interject. Okay.
Yep. You talk it.
I'll talk it. Well, I want you to talk it too, but I'll say the words I wrote and then you can
I think I've talked enough.
Okay. So, after a short recap of what we saw in episode 1, we learn about how on April 29th, 1980, Carl Drew was picked up for a parole violation for what they said was whereabouts unknown, which we all know is bullshit because if you remember in the last episode, Detective Sylvia even said that he saw Carl on the street every day. And where else would Carl be? You know, that's where he was. So we hear Carl Drew as a voice.
That's where his business is. So he's going to be out there.
Where else would he be? So we hear Carl Drew say, quote, "That's something I've been scared of, going to prison for life for something I didn't do." Mm-hmm. And as we talked about last time, the first episode was all these people were murdered by Carl Drew, who called himself Satan, blah, 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 blah. And then we get to the end of that episode, and it turns out nothing you knew is what you thought you knew.
Yeah.
And we learned that it is a possibility that he has been railroaded and that he has been framed and did not kill any of those people. So he said he figured that there was no way they'd find him guilty since there was no evidence.
Right.
There was no evidence to place him.
There was no evidence, no hard evidence linking him to these murders. Right. It was circumstantial at best. Yeah. Not only, I'm sorry, we'll get into it. Okay.
No, I don't even think there was circumstantial. He was originally going to be tried for both Karen Marston and Doreen Levesque's murders, but the Doreen case was so weak that they only charged him with Karen's. Mm-hmm. However, they used the Doreen case as motive for the Karen murder.
Yep.
So basically they were like saying, well, we're not going to try and convict him on the Doreen murder, but y'all know he did it, right?
Right.
So therefore, that's why he killed Karen.
And the reason he killed Karen was because she witnessed the Doreen murder that he committed.
Right.
So the only reason he killed Karen was because she was a witness and he had to kill all the witnesses because, of course, he killed Doreen.
Right. So like if somebody could have proved that he didn't kill Doreen, everything's thrown out.
They have no case. They have no case.
Yeah.
Right.
Because there is no case. I mean, there's a case, but not for him. Yeah. So anyway, so we made his post-conviction attorney, Michael Cutler, and he talks about something called the prior bad acts doctrine, which allows evidence of prior bad acts to come into evidence if it shows motive or a consistent course of conduct.
So I feel like that's almost like a character.
Yeah.
Not a witness, but like an evidence of character. Like, see, he's done these bad things before.
Yeah.
It's not that far of a stretch for him, which I get. Like it is and it isn't. It's a good idea and it's not a good idea.
Well, it's a good idea to explain to people what kind of person the person is, but it isn't fair if you still have to have evidence that the person on trial did the thing you're saying they did, which they didn't have.
Exactly. It's not evidence. It's a way to show, like you said, what kind of person they are, but it's not evidence that he committed a crime.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Just because you're a bad person, quote unquote, doesn't mean you're going to murder.
Right.
Just because you steal something doesn't mean you're going to murder somebody.
Right.
It's not if one, then the other.
Right. Right. Yeah. So May 2nd, 1981, the trial begins. Carl Drew versus the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And we hear his attorney. This is not his attorney at the trial, because remember, his attorney at the trial was horseshit. He had never tried a murder case before, never tried another one after.
He was great.
Yeah. And so the Cutler is his post-conviction attorney. So he's the guy that is being interviewed for the show. And he says there were many instances that proved that Carl was at his stepmother's wedding at the time of Doreen's murder. And I know we talked about last time, I wasn't sure if it was Doreen's murder or Karen's murder that he was at the wedding for, but I went back and read some stuff and double checked, and it was Doreen's murder. So he was at his stepmother's wedding at the time of Doreen's murder.
Right.
He also had
a picture
of him there. Pictures of him at the wedding all night. He did also have an alibi for Karen's murder as well. He was seen in a few bars in town and working with his girls. And they used these women that had seen him in the bars that night, they used them as witnesses in the trial, but they were discredited. And this was mostly because his lawyer was such a piece of shit.
Mm-hmm.
So even Detective Silva agrees that the lawyer wasn't experienced enough to take this case, and he had never worked a murder case before or after.
Did he have that lawyer just because it was like granted to him?
Probably, because he's not like he can go out and get a lawyer.
Right. It's not like he's rolling in the dough.
Right. So I'm sure that was his court-appointed lawyer. Mm-hmm. I guess I don't know if we're 100% sure, but
I would assume.
Yeah.
I would assume. Yeah.
So Carl notes that he wasn't able to read or write at that time any more than his name. And so all the documents that came across the table, everything that he saw, everything they tried to explain to him, he didn't understand most of what was going on. So he kept thinking, this is no big deal. I didn't do anything, so I'm certainly not going to go to jail for this. Mm-hmm. And he was very wrong.
Yeah.
So the prosecution said that there were 4 people at Karen's murder: Carl Drew, Robin Murphy, Carol Fletcher, and Carl Davis. And then there was also a Willie Smith. And Carl says he knew Willie Smith. He was an asshole and a junkie, but he didn't hang out with him. But he'd never even met Carl Davis.
And Carol is the one who said Willie Smith was there, correct?
I believe so.
Yeah, I think Carol's the one who named Carl Davis and Willie Smith as being in the car. Right. Because Carol's the one who turned state's evidence.
Yep.
And basically threw everybody under the bus and was like, yep, Robin slit her throat. Carl Drew was there. Carl Davis was there. Willie was there. Yep. I was the driver, essentially.
Yeah. And just to be clear, we all know she didn't really make all that up. I mean, she didn't really. First of all, it didn't happen that way. Secondly, she's not the one that said, oh, I'm just going to throw everybody under the bus.
Yeah.
She was told to say that.
Yeah.
Which we find out later.
Yeah.
But anyway, Carl Davis and Willie Smith were charged with Karen's murder, but the charges were dropped and the case was never reopened. And that I didn't really mention. They kind of mentioned it in the show, but not so much. But I did find it in our article, which I will link to in the show notes. And I had made a note that that you and I have both said, it's almost like they had a murder and they just wanted to see how many street people they could gather up to go down for this. Like, how many people fit in that fucking car? Is there anybody else that you didn't like you could have Carol say that was in that car?
Plus, it was, I believe they said in the show, an election year, and the prosecutor had not had many success stories lately.
It was the DA. The DA was up for election, and there were a lot of unsolved cases.
Yes. And so, he wanted a conviction to get reelected.
Yep. So we meet former court reporter. I can't remember her first name, but her last name was Charglis.
I believe Margaret?
Margot, something like that.
Margot, yeah.
Is it Margot?
Yep. It was an M word, name.
And she tells us about how when it was Robin's turn to testify, how they really dolled her all up. They made her look, like an innocent little girl. They put her in a button-down shirt, sweater, a little gold cross around her neck. She's supposed to be a Satanist, right? Little gold cross around her neck.
Right.
And this woman said she looked like butter wouldn't melt in her mouth. And I was like, what the fuck does that mean? I'd never heard that phrase. Had you heard that phrase before?
Yeah.
You have?
No.
Oh, yeah. So I looked it up. And it said, I found that it was from a proverb in 1546, the year 1546. This metaphoric expression alleges that one is literally so cool that butter inside their mouth would not melt. And I'm like, okay, so she's from the 1500s?
Or she knows her proverbs.
Well, I guess.
I mean, I don't know.
Surprise me.
Yeah.
I mean, you froze. What did you say after O?
You froze. I said, oh, Margot.
Oh, Margot. So anyway, Robin was given a deal that she would get second-degree murder in the Marsden case for testifying against Carl Drew. In Massachusetts, with a second-degree conviction, there is a possibility of parole. And then we see a grainy tape of Robin Murphy's parole hearing in 2004, and this is where she said that she lied at this trial. She said, I pled guilty on the advice of counsel. and I gave elaborate testimony to the effect that I was present at her murder. And we're going to skip the details of the quote unquote elaborate testimony because it involves some really hideous stuff.
Yes. Yep. Gross. You can watch the show.
Watch the show.
We're not talking about it.
Not talking
it's not
about
good.
It. No. So next, Carol Fletcher testifies. She tells a similar story, but there is no cross-examination by Carl's lawyer. Duh.
So he's just like, nope, that's great. Yep, we'll just go with that.
Yeah. So next we have to talk about the ring, which I think we may have mentioned before. No, not that ring. Not that ring, no. So Karen, the Marsden, the murder victim, she had a ring, and a woman named Leah Johnson ended up with the ring. Leah Johnson was Carl Drew's girlfriend. She said in testimony that she met up with Carl in a bar that evening, and he was playing with the ring, and he gave it to her. She testified to this. Karen's mother confirmed that it was Karen's ring, and then there's a little bit more to this later in the episode. So the authorities had found some satanic stuff in the woods and had attributed it to Karen's murder just to add color.
There's no evidence that they were connected at all. They just found stuff in the woods. They happened to find, parts of Karen, what was left of Karen in the woods. Obviously, those two things are connected.
Yeah.
Even though there's nothing linking them.
Right.
Except the fact that they were in the same woods.
Right. It's a big forest. That's big.
Yeah.
The Freetown State Forest, pretty damn big.
And I wonder how far, and maybe I missed it, but how far they found from Karen this stuff.
Who knows?
I don't know if they said it, but
I don't think they said. It was there, and that's how they put it together.
Yeah.
And there's definitely some evidence of some satanic shit happening in that forest, but we just don't believe it has anything to do with these murders.
They're not connected at all.
Yeah. I don't think so.
I don't either.
Yeah. So this is where we meet Seth Andrews.
This is our podcast. We get to say whatever we want.
Allegedly. So this is where we meet Seth Andrews. He's listed as a podcaster. I looked him up a little bit. He's interesting. I'll put some links in the show notes about him. But he talks about satanic panic, which we don't want to get into as much as he did. But just for a little brief thing here, in about 1980 to 1995, there was what he called a moral panic. It was a way for the United States to appear morally superior. A way for the United States to appear morally superior over our enemy, which was the Russians, was to align ourselves with God and say we are Christians and they, the Russians, are Satanists or satanic. And this is where he says, all it takes is one spark and you've got a panic.
All it takes is somebody saying the word Satan. And look at the West Memphis 3. I mean, perfect example.
Yeah. Oh my God. That was one of my first true crime stories that really got me obsessed with true crime.
That's my friend Jenna's favorite.
Yeah.
It's
fascinating story.
It is. It's okay.
Yeah.
That's a whole other episode.
That's a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
So we're leaving a bunch of stuff out, but just one of the things I thought was funny, and not funny, I guess, weird, is that they were saying that Rainbow Bright is satanic. She has a pentagon on her face, and the rainbow represents the New World Order.
Right.
Yeah. So then we talked to Alan Alves. He's the cop who worked adjacent to this case, and he was interviewed about it for the Bridgewater Triangle movie that we talked about a little bit. He said that Satanism... He was
the Satan expert.
Yes, right. He's the Satan, yeah. So he was suppressed by the government he says that Satanism was suppressed by the government because there were a lot of people in the government who are involved. And he says he doesn't want to sound like I'm going to quote him, he doesn't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but that's what's happening. He said it so weird. Even the closed captions spelled it out the way he said it. Conspiracy
Here's the thing.
Theorist.
When you're saying you don't want to sound like something, you're going to sound like that, whatever it is.
Even if you say it wrong.
I don't want to sound racist, but I don't want to sound like a
exactly.
conspiracy theorist, but
exactly.
I don't want to sound stupid, but
yeah. Well, and it's just that this whole okay. So then we go back to Seth, who explains that this is what's happening right now with, talking about how the Democrats eat babies and shit. And this QAnon is basically the new satanic panic. We just don't call it Satan. We call it Democrats eating babies or whatever. So Carl Drew says he's never been religious. His religion was women. So March 13th, 1981, the verdict is read. Carl Drew is found guilty of first-degree murder. That is a sentence of life in prison, no chance of parole.
Yep.
So one thing I think is really important that we need to talk about is Paul Carey. Because if there is a hero to the story, it is him.
Yeah.
Paul Carey is a retired police sergeant who was friends with Chris Hayes, who is the guy that talked about drinking chicken soup.
He's the private investigator.
PI. Yep. And
he's the guy that said going to jail is like a high school reunion.
Yep. He is, his father, Chris Hayes' father, was friends with Paul Carey.
Okay.
And Paul Carey investigated these murders along with Detective Silva. When Paul retired, he brought all the files over to Chris Hayes and said, take a look at these. I think something's fucked up. We need to look at this. I need your help. And he said he did not believe that Carl committed the murder, and he wanted it out in the open. He said he knew it was suppressed. And Paul then with Chris spent 6 years tracking down people who were involved.
Jeez.
So the first one they interviewed is Leah Chase, and she is the one with the ring.
The ring. Yep. The one. Yep.
Leah tells them the whole ring story was bullshit.
Yep.
She was fed that story by the DA, Ronald Pena.
Who, again, remembers the one who is up for re-election and had not had a lot of success.
Yep. He needed it. Needed to put away a whole bunch of people so that he could get elected.
Yep.
Sounds kind of familiar.
Yep.
So they speak to her, and we hear in the show, we hear them, an audio of them speaking to Leah and her telling that this was all bullshit. So then they find Carol Fletcher. We also hear an audio of that. They explain that when they found her in 2003, she was very fragile and on tons of medication. But she tells them she didn't really even know Carl, and that she has no reason to lie now, but that he was not present at the Marsden murder, and that her trial testimony was false.
Yeah.
So
it's all coming out now.
Yeah. So if she knows Carl wasn't at the murder, I mean, she had to have been there, right?
Yep.
So here's what happened according to her. She says she was driving around that night. Remember the night that Karen had been speaking to the police, and then they wanted to put her in protective custody, and she decided she wanted to go speak to a priest instead. So they dropped her off at a church.
Yep. To talk to the priest.
Yep. And then
because she didn't want to go into protective custody.
Right. So then they scooted, and then they never saw her again. So Carol says that she was driving around that night, and she ran into Karen. Karen got in the car. They just drove around talking, got some beer and some cigarettes. Karen admitted at that time that she was at the Doreen murder, but didn't say who it was, who else was there, or who was responsible. But she told Carol that if anything happened to her, to make sure that her son was okay.
Yeah.
So then a car pulled up next to them and asked how much to Karen for services. Karen said $35. She got out, got in the car. Carol drove off and went to that apartment building where a bunch of them all hung out. It's called Harbor Terrace.
Yep. That's where Sonny lives.
Yep. Sonny lived. And I think Carl Davis lived there too.
Yep. And I think Willie did too.
He might have. Yeah. Bunch of them lived there.
Yeah.
And if they didn't live there, they hung out there.
They hung out there all the time.
Yeah.
Probably with the cops.
Yes. Because the cops hung out there all the time too. So she thought that Karen would go there looking for Robin. So she got there. She found Karen and Robin fighting outside. Karen was coerced to the rooftop of the apartment. So she says the killing was not in the woods. It was on the roof of the apartment. She said Robin pulled out a knife and grabbed Karen by the hair, and then Carol left. So she's not sure if she killed her or just hurt her. But Carl Drew was not there.
I think we can pretty much know that.
Yeah.
she wasn't just going to hurt her.
Right. Well, especially because of the next episode, there's new evidence, let's just say. Spoiler alert.
New people.
New stuff.
Make sure you get a lot of note cards.
Yeah, I got all my note cards right here. But just remember that Carol said that Karen's murder happened on the roof of Harbor Terrace, because that is
and Carl was not there.
Carl was not there. And then Carl says, well, Robin manipulated all of them, the police, the DA, everyone. And Sylvia, Detective Sylvia, he even agrees that she was the mastermind of the whole thing. So now we go back to Robin's 2004 parole.
Remember Detective Thomas from last time? Detective Thomas from last time said that she was smarter than all of them.
Yep.
Yeah.
So back to Robin's 2004 parole hearing, and where she admitted that she lied, and but said that she didn't kill anyone. She was asked why she would implicate herself, and she said, well, it makes it believable. But she says that now she's rehabilitated.
She's just a liar.
So
everything out of her mouth is a lie.
So they bought it, and she was paroled, but not for long. In 2011, she was caught in a relationship with another felon, which violated her parole. So she went back to prison, and she is still in prison to this day.
Her most recent parole hearing was denied just a few weeks ago in October of this year.
Yeah. She was up for parole in March, but it took that long for
them to deny it. And I looked it up, and it was like 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, that she was denied. It wasn't long.
No. And remember Trish DeSoto, who in the documentary, she's talking about, she's like, I knew all these girls. Oh, Robin was hot shit. I was friends with her, blah, 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 blah.
She changed her tune real quick.
She sure did.
In the parole documents that I was reading, she was like, do not let her out.
Yeah. She, not a friend.
So everybody in the story lies.
Everybody.
Even the people who aren't even like, on trial for anything are lying.
Right.
So whatever.
Right. Well, there is somebody that I think we're going to talk about a little bit that I think is probably telling the truth because she has no reason to lie, but we'll get there. So
neither did Trish, but here we are. Neither did Trish.
Right.
Okay.
So,
anyway,
Detective Silva said that Carl could have testified against Robin too, but he was not given the same offer. So if they thought both of them were there and killing Karen, why didn't, why did we decide to railroad Carl? I don't know. But at another parole meeting in 2012, Robin said that her biggest regret is that the real story will never come out because of what she said originally. And it's become the story now, and nobody will know what really happened. And I'm like, that's because you won't tell anybody what really happened because you were involved. And more than involved. So we go back to Detective.
And even if you did tell what really happened, nobody would believe you because you're a liar.
Exactly.
Sorry.
No, it's true. So Hayes, the PI, he said he didn't think it made sense to talk to Robin for this show because she's just going to lie. But guess what? Spoiler alert. So as we near the end of this episode, we see that the filmmakers are going to meet with Robin. And I was so excited.
I was really excited too.
Oh my God.
Yep.
And in the what's next part, she starts doing that thing that all narcissists do. She flatters the filmmakers by saying, this is a quote, "I like how you know a lot of pieces, and it seems like no one else ever put any of that together. I find that really amazing." So not only she's trying to butter them up, but she's also sort of saying, anything you're about to spill had better be in my favor.
Yeah.
And then she also says, I'm not going to lie anymore. Bullshit.
Everything she says is a lie.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah. At this point, and like I said, I feel really bad for her. I really do. She didn't have a chance.
No,
she was
honestly,
fucked from the get-go.
She was.
Literally
and
metaphorically.
We'll get to it. She, like I've texted Amy, she kind of reminds me a little bit of Eileen Warnos in the fact that she was it was almost the exact same path that Eileen had, that Robin had.
Yep.
It's just the fact that Eileen took a more like she was more involved in the murders. She
Yeah.
was the only one committing the murder, whereas Robin, quote unquote, was just a bystander.
Right. Yeah. So that's the end of that episode.
It was very similar.
Sorry.
And yeah, like she didn't have a chance. The people who were supposed to protect her failed her.
Right.
And that makes me so, like, my heart breaks for her.
I know. Me too.
It does. Little girl Robin.
I know.
She didn't have.
I know.
What else did she have?
Yeah.
She was failed.
Yeah.
If you're a parent, your one job is to protect your child.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else, gravy.
Yeah.
They didn't do it.
Oh.
They didn't. They just failed her time and time and time and time again.
Yeah. And then she even tried to get help, like from school and from, authorities.
She tried.
And nobody would listen.
Nobody believed her. Mm-mm. Whatever my child says to me, I'm going to believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
It literally, like, I'm fighting tears right now.
Yeah,
because
it's hard.
She didn't have a chance. Yeah. Her family, her brothers, her mom, her dad, they were the ones hurting her.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were the ones fucking her up.
Yeah. And then she goes to her street family.
They did the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I wonder how she is in prison. I wonder if she's
like this person that she thinks is going to be her savior.
Yeah.
He does the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder what she's like. Because I wonder if, like, she's running that place, or my guess is she probably is running that place, because she's very smart.
She is, and she doesn't take shit, and she's gonna do whatever she can to get Robin on top.
Yeah. Yeah.
She has to.
Yeah.
Who's gonna fight for her? Nobody.
Right.
She learned that at age 11.
Yeah. Yeah, she sure did.
So she's had 40 years
of
having to fight for herself. She's not going to stop in prison.
No.
Anyway, sorry. I didn't mean
she's
to
fascinating.
take this on another tangent.
No, that's okay. Support for the activity continues is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in the below-the-waist grooming. Their products are precision-engineered tools for all your grooming needs. Manscaped's Performance Package is the ultimate hygiene bundle. Join over 4 million individuals worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer just for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code ACTIVITY at manscaped.com. So this is episode 3, Mark of the Beast, and we're going to hopefully get through this one. Mm-hmm. I'll try not to make it too long. So this is the
You're
episode.
not the one making it long. I'm the one who's like, oh, speaking of which, I went to Poland and then a 30-minute tangent on my Warsaw trip.
No, that's okay. I like that. I like all that stuff. It's good.
Yeah, this is, so episode 3, I'm sorry, I know you were saying this. This is where we learned a lot, I think, about Robin, about her childhood, what happened to her. So this one is the first episode where I really started to feel bad for her.
Yeah, I did too. And we also learn about another victim that we've only really touched on a little bit. Her name was Barbara Raposa. Mm-hmm. And she was actually killed after Doreen, but before Karen, but her body wasn't found until months later. Mm-hmm. So we hear about that too.
Yeah.
So for the Robin interview, so she came on, she refused to be on camera for the interview, but she did allow them to take a still photo. And I thought that was really weird. And I wondered if she maybe has a tell. Like maybe she knows that she
even
blinks a certain way,
or looks off, or twitches, or
she does tend to do something kind of funny with her mouth when she's thinking about what to say. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if that's like where she's trying to build her lie. I don't know. I'm just guessing. I
didn't even think that's probably it, though. I'm sure that's it, because
but the last episode she is interviewed on camera. On video. And that's when I saw that. And I was like, oh, I wonder if that's like a tell.
That's probably why she,
probably doesn't play poker in prison.
I mean, she's a narcissist, so I'm sure she would have watched the episode about herself, where she's in it. And if she probably would have seen herself and been like, oh, I can't do that. Yeah.
Yeah, she probably did see the trial footage, because that was probably on TV or whatever at the time.
Yeah.
I would be interested to see that. See if I could make any correlations. Anyway,
You probably could.
So we learned about her upbringing, which we had said was horrific. And we did talk about this. We don't have to rehash it, but she was abused in a million ways.
Yep. Anyway, pretty much you could be abused as a child. She was.
Yeah.
So,
so this is the part that was super sad to me. And this is the woman I do not think was lying. Her name was Catherine Hindle. And she talks about how her own family was pretty messed up. Yeah. And so Robin's mother allowed her to stay with them. And I was like, that was any better? I mean, she had a brother that was raping her. Why does she, you know? Yeah. Anyway, Catherine says that there were no parents in the house at all. I'm sure Dad had moved off, right? He'd got married,
Dad was gone. He left
away.
And had a whole new family.
Yeah.
And then leave the old one behind.
Right. And then Mom was working. She worked in a bar.
She was a single mom
which means
3 kids. 4 kids.
So that means she was working when they were home because she worked in a bar. Yeah. So, So Robin tells about how her parents were never home and she was on her own. She was basically the head of the household when she was 12.
Even though she wasn't the oldest.
She wasn't, no.
She was the only girl.
Oldest brother was kind of a...
raping her.
Well, yeah, he was... I was going to say he was kind of a piece of shit, but he was raping her, so he was
a full-blown piece of shit.
I mean, you know what, though? I'm going to say allegedly because it's Robin who said that, so...
True.
Grain of salt. Anyway.
Yeah.
So next we meet.
If she was gonna, if she lied about murder, she'd probably lie about rape.
She could lie about everything. Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah, that's true.
So next we meet a woman named Colette Maltese. And now, if that last name rings a bell, it should. She is Andre/Andy Maltese's daughter, and she is a hoot.
She is a hoot, but I don't know if this is self-preservation, and I'm not saying anything against her because I probably would be the same way. She is so far in denial about her father.
Yep.
But that's her dad. I mean, I don't blame her.
She says her dad was her best friend.
I don't, if that's true.
Yeah.
Then I don't blame her one bit for not believing everything because if the allegations are true, her dad is a pedophile.
Yeah. So yeah, she says she met Robin when Robin was about 12, and she knew that somehow Robin knew her dad, but she wasn't sure exactly how. We know, Robin tells us, one day Andy gave her a ride home. She was 11. She said she was raped by Andy. And she said, quote, "I wasn't performing cult meetings in the Freetown State Forest. Andy was molesting me in the Freetown State Forest."
And the reason that we can believe this, in my opinion, is that he did the same thing to her friend Catherine.
Yeah. Well, and also, I don't know if I kept this in here. I know it was in here and then I might have taken it out, but Andy was arrested and did time. I think it is in here early on in the late 50s for taking girls from the junior high school and taking them to the forest. So, well, we might get to that again, but anyway, he did do that.
Yeah.
So then we meet Joe Macy, who was Andy's attorney. He gives us a little background on Andy, says that Andy was an older guy. He was, I think, 42, but he lived with his mother. He was wimpy.
His word.
Yeah, his word. He dressed in cowboy boots, like a Western shirt, a hat, a big old belt buckle and stuff. And he said he would drive around looking for young girls. And he tended to groom them.
Yep.
And then we go to his daughter, and she said, he liked younger women. I don't know what to tell you. That was his thing. And I'm like, you mean children?
Younger women is like you're 42 and you're dating a 25-year-old.
Yeah.
Younger women is not you're 42 and you're molesting an 11-year-old.
Right. Exactly.
That's not the same.
No.
And Colette is a pack a day if I've ever seen one.
Oh my goodness. I know. She's a walking, smoking cigarette.
She's got the lips, the lip lines. Yeah. She's got the voice.
Yep.
I would bet money that she smells like a stale cigarette at all times.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yep. So now we're back to Catherine. She tells this very sad story about how Robin would try and find girls for Andy so that she wouldn't have to, quote, have a sexual relationship with him. So one day Andy offered Catherine a ride home. Robin told her that she would be safe, but she wasn't. He raped her repeatedly, brought her to the forest, and we're not going to go into details, but
Not good.
He did tell her that if she said anything, he would kill her family. She went to the police and told them that he did this, and they didn't care.
Nope, they were trying to solve murders. Who cares about a girl getting raped?
Yep.
What was she wearing?
Yeah.
Why did she go with him in the first place?
She was 11, but, she was asking for it.
Yeah, why did she go with him alone?
Yeah.
It was her fault.
Yeah, of course. I'm sure that's what they thought.
I hate everybody.
So they talked to this detective, Joe. Well, I wanted his last name to be pronounced Joaquin, but Paul Carey pronounced it Joaquim. And he worked with him. So I don't know. Okay. But anyway.
Yeah.
He confirms this. They talked to him, this Detective Joaquin or Joaquin. And he says they didn't see Andy as a sex offender. They were more worried about the murders at the time.
Yep.
But the murders happened when these girls were 17, not when they were 11, when they were being raped.
There were other murders.
I don't know what he's talking about. Maybe there were other murders.
They don't care. They didn't. Think about it. We're 1970s rape culture. It did not exist. It was victim blaming culture is what it was.
Yeah, they talked to one of the newspaper reporters, and she said in the 70s and 80s, these cases were not pursued. And she thinks maybe it's because they thought it was okay or that it was consensual.
Right. I've seen what shows. I was watching a documentary and I was texting you about it. Maybe it was I'll Be Gone in the Dark. And they were showing, I think it was I'll Be Gone in the Dark. And they were showing these ads or news stories about, these women who were asking to be raped because they were out at night in the dark. Well, why would you stop and look in a window at night? Why would you do that?
Weird.
Why would you go out at night after dark? Why would you wear a dress after dark? It was so victim blaming.
Yeah.
There was no accountability for the men doing these crimes. It was all the women. Yeah. Well, why would you go with him?
Yeah.
Oh, why were you drinking?
Yeah. So, Catherine said that Andy gave her 2 puppies and he killed one of the puppies right in front of her and said, "This will be your father if you tell."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
So, then we find out Robin got pregnant around 16 and she had a son. The father was one of her brother's lovers. She was raped. She doesn't want to speak anymore about it because she wants to respect the child's privacy, which is great.
Yeah.
Her mother,
she does something right.
I know. Apparently her mother took the child, which I'm thinking, was that the best place for that child to go? And she couldn't handle the 4 kids she already had. So it sounds like right after she had that baby, she moved out and moved in with Sunny Sparta, who we've mentioned before. She lived in that Harbor Terrace.
She's the one whose apartment the cops would hang out at.
Yep. And they had a relationship, sexual relationship.
Yep.
Robin says she met Sunny at a bar. And she says she seemed nice. And she said that quickly changed. But in the beginning, she seemed nice. And they never spoke about that again.
They never bring that up again.
I was like, well, tell me what happened to Sunny.
Again, grain of salt, though.
Right. Exactly. So Robin says this is, going to be Robin's night, Robin's story of the night of Karen's murder. She said that she was going over to Sunny's house with the intent to cheat on Karen. Well, one thing that confused me is that she had said to us, whatever, in her interview, that she was living with Sunny at the time. So then it seemed weird that she would say, I was going to go over to her house as opposed to I was going home, So there,
I don't know. Maybe it's a trip up, or maybe
that didn't jive with me.
She doesn't think of it as her home. Maybe it's just a place she's living.
Yeah. I
mean, I don't know. Or maybe it's one of those where she doesn't think of it as her home, or
Yeah, that's
whatever.
True. That could be.
Or she could just be lying.
Or it's all made up.
Yep.
And the points don't matter. So we did touch on this earlier, but Detective Sylvia said that he and the other cops spent a lot of time in the apartment, and he says it was to get info. Robin says, they were there a lot. They had badges, but they certainly didn't act like police officers.
Yep.
Which makes me think they were also doing the drugs with them and probably
getting the services.
Yep. And apparently it was perceived that they were getting a little too friendly, the cops. And then they go to Sylvia and he says, well, we had the green light from the boss to bring these girls booze and pot and befriend them to get answers from them. So, I mean, it's all kind of fucked, right? I mean, that's not the way you're supposed to do things, but whatever.
But it was the 70s. It was the 70s and 80s.
It's probably still happening. I mean, it's probably still happening. Anyway.
Yeah.
Carl and Robin and Carl, both in separate interviews, talk about how they first met and they hated each other right away. And I think that's because they were pretty much the same person.
They were the same person, right? They were two alike. They were both alphas.
Yeah, there can't be two of us here. One of us has to go.
One of us has to go.
Yeah, they fought. He admits that he hit her.
Yep.
Robin talks about how Carl brought Karen to Sonny's house once, and she Robin admits that she did love Karen, but she kind of made it sound like it was because she was 17. She's like, well, I was 17. I guess I loved her, but I was only 17.
And maybe it was her first girlfriend, her first love after admitting who she was.
Yeah, could have been. Yeah. So, but Robin retells a story that Karen told her, if you believe her, that Carl took Karen to the Holiday Inn and strangled her until she passed out.
Yep.
And when she came to, he was standing over here dripping blood on her in an attempt to scare her and get her under his thumb.
Is this a different story than the one she told before where they were, it's the same one.
Same story.
Where Carl is like chanting in tongues.
Yeah. In a language she didn't understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. We talked about that in our first episode, the first, the shortened version of this whole thing.
Yeah. Where we just talked about the murder.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that was the same incident. So then, according to Robin, after that, he took Karen's car away from her, and then got her hooked on drugs. And Robin was trying to help Karen. She took her to a mental health clinic to have someone take a look at her and get her some help. And they gave her Haldol and sent her on her way.
Oh, mental health.
So... and then I just had a note in here about Robin's lawyer. Her current lawyer, I believe it's her current lawyer. And I forgot to write down her name, but
I didn't. Courtney Kenyon.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
Courtney Kenyon.
Yep.
She tells about how Robin's father let her down, how Andy abused her. That's putting it mildly. And then, and then Carl did too. So she's basically saying kind of the same things we are about how, like, Robin really didn't stand a chance, blah, blah, blah. But I feel like her lawyer just sees her as a victim and that she has no responsibility for anything.
And there's no, she had no part in this, and any part she did have was not her fault because of her past.
Right.
It's like the opposite of the prior
deeds or whatever that was.
Like the opposite of that. Like she's exempt from these crimes because of what happened to her.
Because she had a bad childhood. Yeah. Which I don't agree with either one of those things, but
no.
Anyway, so Karen told Robin that Doreen, there's too many people.
There's a lot of people.
Karen told Robin.
There will be a quiz at the end of everybody who's listening.
And I probably will not pass. Karen told Robin that Carl killed Doreen, and Robin didn't believe her, but Karen said she was there. Karen also told her baby daddy the same thing. And I think we talked about all that before, so I don't know that we need to really go into that too much.
Yeah,
but
we did. Yeah,
we do need to talk about Barbara Raposa. And Robin says that she was a witness at this murder too. She, at least in court, that's what she said. Barbara was 19 years old. She was the girlfriend of Andy Maltese, who was, let's remember, 42.
So, and is a loose term here?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. That seems like a pretty weird age gap. At least
she's legal.
Yeah. Barely. Yeah. So the last date she was seen was November 8th, 1979. So that is in between when Doreen went missing and when Doreen's body was found, and then when Karen's body was found.
Karen's body was found
in
January of 1980.
Was it January? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Barbara was found in January. She went missing November 8th, 1979. Her body was found January 6th, 1980, by a man who was walking his dog. we won't go into it too much, but she was frozen solid, fucking January.
Mm-hmm.
And
in Massachusetts.
Yeah. And her face was smashed in, presumably by a cement block that was nearby, and her hands were tied like the others. So then we're going to talk to Andy's daughter, Colette, again. And she said that she'd heard about Barbara when he told her that he had a new female in his life. And she said there was an age difference, but people look at it like it was a problem. She doesn't think it was a problem. And she said she has lots of aunts and uncles who have a 20-year age gap, and they're still married. And then I wrote in my notes, well, she comes from a long line of pedos, I guess.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So Barbara also got pregnant. They think it was Andy's. She had a son. Trish DeSoto, who we've talked about before, she talks about Barbara. She was actually friends with Barbara, and that she said she was a good girl.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had put in my notes, she's maybe the only one in this whole show, I believe.
Yeah.
Except that she said bad things about Robin at her parole hearing. Anyway, she said that Barbara was going to leave Andy and take their son. His lawyer, Andy's lawyer, says that he doesn't really believe that Andy killed Barbara because the medical examiner said that whoever did that would have been covered in blood. And Andy lived with his mother, and she didn't find any bloody clothes, and he didn't come late home or anything like that. And then we go back to Andy's daughter, and she cracked me up in this one. She's like, he wasn't there because he was at home in bed, just like my mammy said. And she wouldn't lie. She's a French woman from Canada.
What does that even mean?
She's a French woman from Canada. She wouldn't lie.
Those French women from Canada don't lie. Everybody else does, but not those French women.
No, they don't lie.
Yeah, I know.
So anyway, Andy kept going back to the police, acting like he was helping, giving them ideas of who it could be. And then one day he came into the police station carrying a Bible, and he told them that he is with God now, but he used to be with the devil. He talked to the police for about 48 hours at that time, and he told them that he could see where Barbara was and wanted to take them there. He said it was a vision. He had a vision of Barbara being murdered.
Right.
And just
probably
so
like
happens,
a memory.
Yeah. Just so happens he knew everything. And when he told them all that he saw, he took them to where her body was.
Right.
And
from his vision.
Yeah, from his vision. And so, yeah, they arrested him.
Good.
And then they cut to Robin, and she tells the story as she heard it from Andy. And he told her that he was carried by angels over Barbara's body as she was being murdered, and that he knew that she was laying in the woods. He said she was bludgeoned to death with a rock. She told the police, and they basically say, yeah, he told us that too.
Yeah.
So she really wanted Andy to go down for this. And so she said to the police, let's say I was in the car with him. Would that be enough for you to go pick him up? And they said, sure. And so she goes, well, then I was in the car with him. I was in the car with Andy and Barbara.
Yep.
So she just plays the game. She just knows how to play the game.
Yeah.
So she said that she had been asked if she lied because of what he did to her, Andy, and when she was a kid. And she said, no, she did it because she didn't want it to happen to anyone else. And it worked.
Well, isn't she just so magnanimous?
I know. What a good person.
I know.
So the police were happy to play along, bringing Robin into the scene and guiding her through the whole thing and being like, is this where he was? And is this where you stood when you watched? This is where you were, right? And she
so
just said,
leading
yep.
questions,
Yep.
just leading.
Yep. So she was a star witness in Andy's trial as well as Carl's.
Yep. Look at her.
Yeah. And at the trial, the Andy's trial, they wanted to show that he had some sexual proclivities, if that's what you want to call it. So apparently he had this bag of toys that they talked about. It had rope, handcuffs, dildos, other weird stuff in it.
If it's both consenting, it's not a bad thing.
Right.
Like they're trying to paint this as some terrible, terrible sexual thing. And for him it was. But if you're both consent, do what you want to do.
Yeah.
Just because handcuffs and to be tied up doesn't make you a bad person.
Right. Right. So he was convicted.
Mm-hmm.
So but he did not go to prison. he went to a hospital for the mentally impaired where he died of a stroke. So now we're going back. We're still interviewing Robin. So we're going back to her story of Karen's murder. And this is at her parole hearing. She said she'd been hanging out with Karen and they parted ways and she went to Sonny's house. And she says, quote, "My intent that night was to cheat on Karen with Maureen Sparta." So then she said that the next day after that, Karen was missing. She said she truly believes that Carl killed Karen and she really wanted him to go to jail so he wouldn't hurt anybody else.
Again.
So big of her.
How magnanimous of her. Yeah.
So Robin says we concocted a story of how she was killed. The police guided her every step of the way, the police or the DA's office, so that she could testify that she had been there. She said it was all because Ron Pena, the DNA. The
double helix.
Yeah. Ron Pena, the DNA. God, I just fucking did it again. You guys, it's 9:41. It's past my bedtime.
It's way past our bedtime.
She said it was all because Ron Pena, the DA, was under pressure to get this solved as he was up for re-election, like we talked about before. So Robin was the key witness. So in the current interview, the filmmaker asks Robin, why incorporate Satan into all this? And she said, oh, well, because the nice people said to. And he said, the DA? And she said, yes.
Again, leading her.
Yeah. So, yeah, she basically admits to the filmmakers that all of that was made up because the DA told her to say it.
Yep.
And they said to her that it was a ritualistic killing, and then she just guessed on stuff like, oh, like, was there a pentagram there? Or and they'd say, yeah, say that.
Yeah.
And she really thought she was helping because she really wanted to get Drew off the street, of course, for reasons of her own. So then we talked to a woman whose last name is Goodwin. I missed her first name, but she's an author. And she talks about...
I wrote it down.
Okay.
Megan,
you're right.
For the
I don't know how I
record,
didn't write that down.
How hurtful. All right? Hurtful. There's so few Megans anywhere.
I'm sure it's in my
celebrate
notes.
It's fine.
That's
There's
right.
a Hallmark movie where the main character is a Megan, by the way.
Oh, good.
Terrible, but I watched it because her name was Megan.
Of course.
Terrible.
I've seen a few Amy ones too.
Nice.
So Megan Goodwin, she's the author, tells us in the late 70s and early 80s, prosecutors were more likely to assume that something doubly was going on. And then Seth, who we talked about before, he also said that many of them were already primed by a Bible belief. And then Fall River itself had 9 churches. That's a small town. 9 churches. So it was natural to believe that Satan was behind everything. It's probably just easier for them than to think that it was actually one of their own people that, live next door or whatever.
Yeah.
So January 14th, 1981, Robin pled guilty. This was to Karen's murder. And they told her she'd probably get 12 years. The assistant DA and the DA told her that she would have to be testifying about the Doreen murder as well. And this is all during Karen's trial now.
Right.
Raposa's trial, Andy's trial is done. They told her that she would be testifying about the Doreen murder. And she said she didn't know anything about it because she lied and she wasn't there. She was like, I made it all up. I don't. And they were like, they left. They came back in the room with a bunch of other people who all sat her down and said, you have to tell the same story that you told to the grand jury. Because basically that story you told is what got us
You're
here.
the key.
And we can't win this without you telling that same story again, even if it's not fucking true. So she said, you're going to say you were there. This is what you saw. That's what we agreed to. So we end this episode on another cliffhanger.
This is a big cliffhanger.
This is a big one. And I think we'll have to stop tonight for this one.
Yes.
And the next time we get together, we will talk about this episode because this was a fucking doozy.
It was. Yeah.
So
the filmmaker is contacted by a man who said that he had new evidence in the Marston murder, but he wanted to remain anonymous. So we have him, he's in shadows. I think if memory serves, they did distort his voice as well.
They might have.
Yeah. So they bring him in and he said that when he was about 5 or 6 that he saw someone killing a girl. And And then that's the end of episode 3.
End scene.
And scene.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was it was pretty it was like a
that was a what?
But again, it just goes to show that they didn't have evidence. They just decided Carl did it. And that's what they did.
Yep. I mean, I'm not going to say that doesn't happen anymore, but because I think it does. But yeah. All right. So I guess all we have left
is our Alanism.
So I went through the I want to say today, that not the day you guys are listening to this, but the day we are recording this, which is November 7th, is the anniversary of my dad's passing.
Oh, I'm really sorry. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh,
so, Dad, if you want to say
I really
anything,
hope he's here. Yeah,
right
please.
Here. Not
give
into
you a
the
moment.
Back of it. Yeah.
Yeah, not into the back.
Yeah, here
of
we can do a count.
Do you see the little dial? Speak above that.
You want to speak right above the dial. I'm pretty sure my dad knows how to speak into
He probably does. Your dad was a lot smarter than me.
No.
Why is it tinny?
It's just that he was in broadcasting for
I don't know, Amy.
Years.
Why? It's not my fault that it's tinny. Actually, it is, you fucking idiots.
I hope I didn't make you feel like that.
No, you didn't. I just did that on my own.
Okay. So the one I picked was because I knew we were probably going to do this, and we did ramble a bit. So this was Jackie had written this. He had said this after he had been talking randomly for some time. Quote, "I'm on a field and stream." End quote.
Nice. That's a good one.
Yeah. I think he was trying to say that he was like stream of consciousness.
Right.
I think he was trying to say that.
Yeah.
He was on a field and stream. So see you next week for the conclusion of this
in-depth
saga.
Case. Yeah, and it is a saga.
Yeah. And then then we'll do at least one episode because it's Megan's turn to do a Dead Files episode after that.
Yeah.
So we will do that and then probably take a break. Maybe
breather.
Maybe we'll find something we can do together.
Yeah.
Another one we do together or something. But
we'll
see.
Little fun one.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Not as in depth as this. I think we both need a mental break after this because holy shit.
Oh man, this is dark.
This is
dark.
Doozy.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Activity Continues podcast. We really appreciate you giving us your ears for a bit. Please reach out if you have a suggestion for which episode of the Dead Files we should cover next, or if you have a spooky story you'd like us to share on the show. We can be reached at theactivitycontinues@gmail.com or through our website or any of our socials. Links are all in the description of the show. Please feel free to drop us a note and say hi. And join us next time when the activity continues. The Activity Continues is produced by me, Amy, at Collected Sounds Media and is part of the independent Collected Sounds podcast network. We are also proud members of the Boo Pod network of super cool podcasts.
Nailed it.